Welcome to the Sales Mindset Podcast. I'm here with the instructor, Dr. Dennis D. Pasquale, and I'm Brian Gurgis. Today we're going to sit down and have a beer and just talk some sales.
All right. What do you got for me today?
So as usual, we're going to open up with a priming question, and today's is potentially a hot button one, but I think it's going to be kind of fun. How important are physical characteristics for a salesperson going into a sale? And specifically focusing on changeable characteristics, appearance and whatnot. And what should you do to control that?
Okay. So let's talk about theoretically where this goes. As a salesperson, you have to be likable, right?
Sure.
So what is it about your physical characteristics that might create a problem with likability, which is involving trust and other aspects? So what matters here is what's congruent with your industry and what you're selling, who your customers are. So, first example, suit and tie, respectable salesperson, right?
Sure.
Okay. So, an ex of mine, her father worked in an industry and they were based out of the New York area. Well, he was selling to Silicon Valley. And the suit and tie was actually a turnoff.
Okay.
Because it wasn't congruent. It was, this person's wearing a suit and tie. They're untrustable. So you have to consider what is going to be considered quote unquote attractive in your particular market and appropriate for your particular market. If you're in IT repair, you're probably wearing a polo, right?
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily sales, but it's just what is congruent. And there's still some component within customer service of sales there. So when it comes to the physical characteristics, they have to be appropriate. And yes, even, you mentioned controllable, but even some seemingly incontrollable things can affect your ability to sell.
Okay.
If you're in fitness or health and you're obese, that's going to affect your ability to sell. You're not going to be as trusted.
You want to reflect the product or be congruent with the product as well.
Now, that being said, you could walk in as a male with a 5 o'clock shadow wearing tattered clothes that you picked up from the section that isn't selling from the thrift store. But if you have a good relationship, that will trump the physical characteristics.
Yeah.
Right? And so, it is uncomfortable to say this. We have this culture of we accept everyone for who they are, how they dress, etc. But when it comes down to it, subconsciously we make judgments. If your clothes are dirty, there's going to be judgments. If your clothes are not properly cleaned, well, that's dirty, properly pressed, ironed, if they're wrinkled, even t-shirts. Yeah. Unless it's meant to not be wrinkled. Some shirts, I suppose, might be. Or not meant to be pressed, I'm sorry. It can reflect as if you're not taking care of yourself. How are you going to take care of the business? And that's where you see a lot of people come out saying we want people who are clean shaven. Or at least your facial hair needs to be kempt. Yeah. Right? If I had just this giant poofy beard, even in academia, I'd be like, what's up with this dude? Right? Can he not, put some beard balm in his facial hair and groom it and trim it to a decent length? Or if I'm going to grow it long, does it at least look like it's a groomed length? Sure. Right? And that's the thing. Even things that seem unprofessional can have a groomed and ungroomed area. One area that I know has held someone back is having their nose pierced, their septum pierced. Yeah. But I think it was taken into context of everything else. I don't think that looks, today, that looks professional. 15 years, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, that might change. Tattoos. I know that in the 50s, tattoos were a huge faux pas. Yeah. Right?
Can be still sometimes.
It depends. If you've got a facial tattoo, that's obviously an issue. Now, what are you going to do about that? How are you going to handle it? Makeup, tattoo removal.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. If you didn't know, he looks like Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
So, the thing about tattoos that's interesting as it changed, we had, this wasn't a sales related thing, but I was sitting at an executive retreat when I was working for the credit union, and one of the the members of the board, not the board, but the C-suite was like, we got to do something about tattoos. We had to do about teller tattoos, blah, blah, blah. And the EVP of business, no, this was the EVP of business development that was saying this. And it was a little bit, and so the vice president of lending just starts to cross his arms and slowly lifts his sleeve up to reveal that he has a tattoo.
Okay.
And the EVP of BDP of business development just kind of is like, oh. And the president, who is a good friend of this other vice president, everyone enjoyed a good chuckle about it and was like, does it really matter if the tattoo is either not flagrantly done, I guess. It's conservative. What is conservative, lowercase c, not politically conservative, but what is conservative will change over time. As with piercings, eyebrow piercings, which was a 90s thing. If you got an eyebrow piercing, you just look like you're back in the 90s. Not that that's another story.
People choose to do that.
Yeah. But like nose piercings, not septum piercings, but like nose piercings would have been probably considered unprofessional back in the day. But today would be considered something fairly, especially if it's subtle, like just a little stud. Would be considered, oh, okay.
It's very much within the realm,
Yeah. So now if you look like that, you can't even go near an MRI machine. That's probably another concern. But generally speaking, how conservative is your facial, anything that you're doing relative to the industry. Now, that being said, if you're in the music industry and you're selling, pierce all the way. Right?
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be a major issue.
It's about being congruent to your industry / your client / your product.
Exactly.
Is kind of the idea. And also congruent to the expectations of your personality to a certain degree. Like every industry or every position has its own wiggle room, I would say. But as a professional salesperson for a Fortune 500 company that's making big business-to-business relationships, you can go in a full suit and tie. But equally as acceptable depending on the circumstances. You might be able to get away with a button-down and slacks, maybe even without a tie, depending on your relationship with the person or what type of meeting it is. Both are equally acceptable.
Yeah.
But maybe you'll go to what's more congruent for your personality or rapport that you're looking to build.
Or your level of experience and your power in the situation as well. A good high-powered person that you would think still needs to sell might be able to get away with looking a little more conservative. So, for example, me, at my stage of my career, I can probably get away with jeans more often than someone who's a little younger.
Sure.
But again, a certain level of establishment there. And I'm not completely established, but I know that I can go into certain situations and do that. I wouldn't go on stage in jeans. So if I'm doing public speaking, that's a different method, a different mode. And so I would definitely change up. But in the meetings leading up to it, I might say, here's my stage presence. You see that I wear a suit, which is often either a polo or a button-up with no tie, because that's my uniform. That's just generally how I like to present myself. So there's a lot of questions that go behind what are the expectations or what are the norms in that particular industry.
Yeah. I actually had an argument. I definitely won't walk away saying I'm 100% right exactly, but I feel as though you get some interest out of it. When we did Career Showcase in my senior year, I went to the two main semesters, in fall and spring. I really didn't want to do like the Navy suit, white shirt tie situation or black suit, white shirt tie. I really, really was resistant to like the suit and tie. And everybody was like, no, like, wear the suit and tie. Can you just do what everyone else is doing, dear God? And I'm like, what if instead I wore my gray, like, I guess it's like a tweed texture, like, suit with, like, the matching pants without a tie and a black shirt instead? I'm like, no, don't do that. Go do the exact same thing. I'm like, no, but this is incredibly professional still, but it's more comfortable professional as well. And I did that both times. I went in in a far more casual suit instead of in a black shirt instead of a white shirt. And I ended up building like really good relationships, and none of the recruiters seemed to bat an eye, especially since I would learn that the recruiters were in their 20s, the ones that you initially met. They were people who'd only been there for a couple of years. But beyond that anyway, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that it would have been fine. I think as long as you're observing an upward style of dress or a respectful style of dress to say, I am in a situation, I recognize that this is a B2B situation, I don't think it's a problem. I've seen people who wear bright colors, for example.
Yeah.
And it works for them because they're comfortable in it.
Yeah, that's the
and
big
they're
thing.
showing that they have a sense of style.
Yeah.
That being said, by the time you get up to the sales vice president, you might want to switch to a more conservative blue or gray. All of my suits are gray. I'm very boring. I need to add some blue to my repertoire, some blue and some checks, or not checks, but some stripes.
Yeah.
And I'm so used to being conservative that I actually will be a little uncomfortable in it at first.
Uh-huh.
I'll adjust to it. But that's important. I would never go into a situation with that type of suit.
Yeah.
Where I need to be myself. So I think what you did was fine with dressing up. You were still dressing up. But you were doing so in a way to own your own style.
That was the goal. If part of it was comfort, and then part of it was like, oh, it's a little different. Maybe that's its own thing.
And it allows you to stand out.
Sure.
In a good way, I think.
Yeah, I actually, so I was really afraid at first because I'm like, oh man, like everyone's gonna be in suits and ties, and most people were, but there were some people that weren't, and like you're saying, there's some people in bright colors as well, and for some people it actually really worked, and that, I guess that goes back to wearing what fits your personality or dressing to your personality. If you're able to make an impact in your own way, that's already half the battle, as long as you stay within the realms of professionalism.
So there's this old rule of don't wear light colored suits after Labor Day.
Uh-huh.
And
what does that even mean? Like, I've heard this, but
it's because summer light suits, sun.
Yeah.
Right. That's my assumption anyway. Assumption. Ask you me. So it was, I think, Barack Obama's one of his terms as president, and he wore a tan suit or a cream-colored suit after Labor Day. And you know how the news is.
Yeah, they're going to lose
Fox
their minds.
News hates the Democrats. MSNBC hates the Republicans. Anyway, the conservative media was all over him for doing this, and it was so, in the modern times, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it comes from a place. And that's the illustration that I'm making here, is that if you're meeting with someone old and you want to make a statement with that person, then you might want to dress more conservatively.
Yeah.
However, whether we're talking sales, but this could be interviewing as well, do your pre-approach research. Learn about the person, right? Find out what their level of conservatism is, lowercase c, conservatism again, so that if you do feel that this is a good way to stand out, it's a great way to stand out. Because, do you look like everyone else, or is there something to distinguish you?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the guy in the light gray suit. I liked his sense of style and his confidence, right? So, now... And I'm thinking interviews because you mentioned interviews, but we're also talking sales, and I think you have a lot more leeway in terms of the types of suits that you would wear in sales situations.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, that being said, what a lot of salespeople will do is use their clothing and attire to signal their level of success. And the thought there, I think, is that by signaling success, this is a person you want to do business with. So,
which is a rocky road.
It is.
In the grand scheme. In this sense, no, but in the grand scheme of things.
But there are little things. If I'm presenting to a financial partner or institution, I'm going to go with French cuffs and cufflinks. And I would actually like to see them more normalized. I really like wearing cufflinks. Yes. I think that's another area where it allows you to have an individual style while still being somewhat conservative with the suit that you happen to wear. Cufflinks, your tie rod or your tie pin or tie clip or whatever you want to call it. I like to have fun with my socks as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of opportunity within that to still own who you are and your individualism. And I think that's what a lot of people want to do. Oh, I am who I am. That's why I have my septum pierced, or that's why I decided to do funky things with my eyebrows or hair, or talk about pink or blue hair and how that could turn off people. Why turn people off? Why economically restrict yourself when, you want to be yourself around your friends. Be yourself on the weekends, or when you go home, put the septum piercing in. I don't know if you can take it out. I don't know what the deal is with that.
I think sometimes you can.
Clearly I have so many piercings.
Yeah.
I do have tattoos, but again, to be conservative, they're not commonly visible.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you have a very conservative. I would say in today's world,
that's
a conservative tattoo.
Sure.
What I opted when I got my tattoo was to actually go with my leg and my calf, so that I could display it when I run. I could have it part of, as an athlete.
Yeah.
I could do that. But at the same time, teaching in the business college, I wanted to make sure, and doing business, I wanted to make sure that it was easy to hide, to obfuscate.
There's actually a lot of memes kind of about this concept where, younger people making fun of the 9-to-5 culture, office culture, where they say, I'm going to be myself today. I'm going to put on my wacky socks. Just to make a big deal out of nothing or something. But I think that the key to it in a professional situation is finding the range of reasonability, and then finding what you can do in there to still be yourself.
Yeah. If you're, don't cut off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah.
To use a phrase of just you're being so individual that you don't have this ability to bring value to your life and to your organization. Granted, if that individuality will bring you value in some way, shape, or form outside of that, if it's part of your industry or whatever, then great. But I think even things that are mainstream stylistic, they don't always age well.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about me with a mullet in this specific. I'm glad you're amused by that.
You say you don't love mullets?
I used to have a mullet.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't age well, obviously. That's I think my penance is my hairline now.
Yeah.
I used to have a mullet.
I see. I think you'd look really good if you tried it again.
That would definitely be David Carradine or who is that with, I don't know.
A mullet with a receding hairline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We don't need to do that. But that's the thing. For me, even men with long hair, which is not considered conservative, can look conservative if you do it right.
If you're stylish.
And it's all about adjusting to whatever situation you happen to be going into.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah. Be fluid about it.
Yeah.
And I think that you can still express your individual. If this is about your individuality, again, you can be individualistic on the weekends, but responsible to your financial foundation in sales and your organization by adjusting who you are in what particular time.
Sure. And that even just comes to physical appearance. It's more so that professionalism is just a layer, what do you call it, a semi-transparent layer to put on top of that, where you shouldn't lie about who you are or do something out of character for what you are as a person, but also you still engage with the world in a professional manner, in a way that's digestible for more people, especially if you're trying to conduct business and maintain a good relationship, where no one says that you have to only be individual on the weekend. Just be individual on the weekends. Yeah. And then also bring your own individuality into your daily life, into work, in a way that's still palatable and workable, where that means, covering or taking out your septum piercing tattoo, but still having a nice, fun, casual conversation with the client when you built a relationship with them. That's fine, as long as you're still fulfilling what you need to.
And you know what? Some clients, once you build that relationship and you share that portion of yourself, sometimes they can be fascinated.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Your nose is pierced?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'd like to see that. And you can pull up your Instagram and say, now here's what I look like on the weekends. But I'm here to serve you. And clearly, if I'm cleaning, what you're communicating is, I'm cleaning up during the week so I can take care of you. I'm paying attention to you. It's not about me. It's about you.
And they get even more points.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so... this was not designed to ruffle feathers. I know that there's a lot of you be you out there, and we don't want to say don't be you, but understand that there's going to be times when you have to be more conservative, lowercase c. You don't have to be politically conservative if you don't want to be, but conservative in how you take care of yourself to make sure that clients can see that you're able to pay attention to those little details. Anything else to add, Brian?
Wear your wacky socks. All the time.
Absolutely. Wacky socks, maybe even, wacky tattoos on your legs. I don't know. But thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.